Politics and Perspective with Chris Johnson. Palpable.
Check.
Paradox.
There it is.
All right, cool.
Gotcha. Hey, Matt.
How you doing, man? Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate that, man.
100%. Thank you so much for taking the time to, your schedule has got to be off the hook these days.
It's a little crazy. It's a little self-imposed crazy as it is, but then when you factor in two-year-old twins, it gets insane. So it's a little crazy.
You're like a Twitch king, man. You're like on Twitch all the time.
Thanks, man. I try. I really enjoy it. I'm glad I started when I did. I'm glad I started it. It was like about 4 years ago. I picked up this consistent schedule I have. So now that people have been home looking for something to do, looking for people to hang out with, I'm just happy I've been able to provide that.
That's awesome. How does it feel to be so accessible these days?
But I have had people ask me that. And actually, I was gaming with Mike Shinoda in Valorant, and he's like, when I first talked to some of the people from Twitch, I was like, he asked them, he's like, well, what does Matt do? And they're like, oh, Matt streams literally every single moment of his entire life. And I was like, well, that's not exactly correct. It definitely seems that way, but it is curated. It's not like carefully curated, because I've known for this 21, 22 years I've been in Trivium, I've always known the amount I want to show. Like at the beginning, when she wasn't my wife yet, when she was still my girlfriend, my wife was like, I don't really need a public spotlight. So we kind of kept her out of it, but then people kept trying to fish into it. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to make a profile that can be public, so that way people can get to know me here and feel all right with it. Same thing like when I first had my kids, I'd always cover their faces. And at first people weren't into it, but then they started accepting, all right, this is the boundary. I think people are always going to want to be able to go past the boundary, but with my stream, even though I stream as much as I do, even though I am as accessible as I am, and it seems like there'd be no secrets, no things, no fun, no mystery left over. Every time we've done a Trivium record, the last 2-3 records, people haven't known we were doing them because I was streaming the whole time. So it's like, it's navigating around it, showing specific things. Like when I've got the backpack on tour, showing the backstage, showing the bus, I do always give everyone a heads up before I'm about to come in. Like, hey guys, I'm going to be walking through it this time. So it still is very casual. It still is spur of the moment. And it's not overly calculated, but there is that boundary that I don't show. Like I know what I won't show. And it's not listed or anything like that, but it's just like this inherent gut feeling. And I do believe that the majority crowd of the channel understands that. They're never like, hey, can we see your kid? Hey, can your wife talk on camera? Which is really cool that they respect those boundaries, because I feel like I give them more than maybe some other artists would be up for. Mm-hmm. And in return, they're okay with those other specific areas being out of focus.
That's great. You're able to kind of lay the ground rules, and and you've established it over a long time now. So it's not like it's anything new. And honestly, there's something really beautiful about giving and be an example of somebody that has very clear boundaries in life, but it's still very accessible and still wants to share a ginormous amount. So
thank you.
So, yeah, dude, thank you. I think it's really cool to see that as an example of somebody that still has a private life,
Mm-hmm. And it is very important to have that. It's very important to have those boundaries. I mean, maybe there's some artists out there that truly want to give absolutely everything. I've never personally seen that, but it's whatever feels right and whatever feels genuinely that person. Like, I've had other bands talk to me about what I do, and they're like, they're like, nothing, not saying anything against what Trivium does, but they're like, we feel like if we streamed every sound check and every show for free from a Twitch channel, that it would push people to not come to our shows because they've already seen it. And I've said to them, I was like, well, I feel the exact opposite. I feel like the people that are going to come to that show are in that city. They're going to be at that show anyway. And you'll never be able to simulate the true feeling of being at a metal show. Maybe you can simulate other genres, but I feel like metal, you can never simulate. So they get to see how much fun the people are having there, and it entices them to want to go. Same thing, like, I try to think of a metaphor of it. If I watch a food show for, Bourdain is my hero, rest in peace. I always forget, it's crazy to think that he's not here anymore, but
it's crazy.
Yeah. So when I think of Bourdain, like all the restaurants we always want to go to eat on tour from his shows, we watch it and we want to go. Like that's the idea that I think of it is, like, people see the show, so they're going to want to see, they're going to want to put themselves actually in the place of the people there. So I feel like it's an incentivization to see how incredible the shows are. But to the other end, I feel like if someone isn't perfectly practiced, you cannot stream from the soundboard every single show, because if you don't feel comfortable in your craft or something like that, then I can understand that. Maybe that's not always the reason, but I feel like with us, we practice so damn much. Even on my stream, like I'm used to screwing up on camera, used to screwing up in front of a couple thousand people a day for a couple hours a day. It doesn't matter to me anymore. So that way, when I go on tour, hopefully all those rusty bits are practiced through. And with the ethos behind my stream for myself is that this is all the stuff I have to do to stay in shape as Matt Heafy of Trivium. So it's stuff I would have normally done without the camera rolling. So I like that I could just have it rolling, have people there, make it not a lonely experience, and entertain people while they get to see basically the training of what it takes to keep up my voice and my guitar playing for every tour and every record we do.
That's awesome, man. I imagine it probably takes some of the heat out of the live show, as far as, like you were just saying, like if you get used to being kind of less than perfect in front of people hours a day, then when you go on stage, you're probably feeling tighter and less concerned about a little bit of this, a little bit of that here and there. It's a live show, right? So
massively. I was talking about my practice regimen before and during streaming to another musician, another singer, and they're like, well, isn't it super not rock and roll or punk rock to practice that much? I was like, well, listen, think of it this way. I was like, I practice so much to the point where when I walk up on stage for tour, I don't have to think, am I going to hit these notes? Do I know these words? Is my screaming and singing going to work? Do I know all these things? Do I know all the words? Do I know the guitar solo? Because I've rehearsed it so damn much that I can just basically unplug thoughts and just enjoy the show. I was like, in turn, like that process is far more rock and roll, far more punk rock than just not taking it as seriously as I do. Like, I don't know if my methodology is more like a musician, but I try to think of it as more like an athlete, that there is no time off. I don't have vocal time off anymore. I used to, and I'm sure some musicians don't need to practice much. They're better than me, and they don't need to do this. Like Bruce Dickinson doesn't have to take lessons, doesn't have to warm up as much. Halford didn't. Dio didn't. Halford doesn't. I remember Howard Jones doesn't have to warm up extensively.
Wow.
But I do, and I know what I need to do to sound the way I do. I wish I didn't need it, but recognizing that, all right, I need an hour warm up. Exactly 2 hours before every single show, with another like 5 to 15 minute warm up right before the show, and then a cool down for 5 to 15 minutes after the show. I recognize that I need that, and I make sure I keep that up, versus there being no, oh man, why wasn't this part of my register working? Or if anything like that does happen, I typically know why. It's like, oh, I got less sleep, or I ate this too late, or I didn't practice this thing. I've started, not anymore, but I used to take extensive notes on the difference of show time to warm up time. I would try anything from warming up 10 hours before a show for an hour, and changing that interval of whatever it's 5 minutes to an hour of warm ups to 2 hours of warm ups to 10 minutes, 10 hours for the show. And I try every hour interval between that. And what I've discovered is, if I warm up and go directly into a show, do a full hour, that's 30 minutes of head voice exercises, 20 minutes of head voice trivium, 10 minutes of full voice trivium into the show, my screaming is super brutal, but my singing is not quite there yet. However, if I stretch that to 3 to 5 to 8 hours, my singing is flawlessly, effortlessly perfect by the show, but the screaming is dried out. So now I have to find these different things to make them work.
Do you think that your martial arts, it's jujitsu that you practice? Is that correct?
Yep. 313. So this month on the 13th will be 8 years that I've been doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Wow. And luckily, right when pandemic happened, one of my friends had his first kid, and so he was already out when this happened. And we text each other like, "This is kind of shady going on. Whatever this is happening in the world right now." This was like week one of lockdown, essentially. I said, "Let's train in my backyard." I was like, "I've got mats, I've got a tent." So we've been doing that every 5 days a week, basically since the pandemic happened. So for a year, it's just been me and my main jiu-jitsu training partner from my academy. We've started doing more stuff today. We've been working a lot of eskrima, the kali sticks, the Filipino knife art. We've been working that, a little bit of Muay Thai, a little bit of Taekwondo, Jeet Kune Do, a little bit of Wing Chun, but mainly jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is the main focus, but little bits of everything. But the kali sticks have been really, really fun.
That's amazing. I can only assume that's probably played into your overall ability to keep this type of discipline around your approach to approaching and reapproaching over and over again, and trying to find that balance point. Because if you don't have days off when you train, and if you're always kind of conditioning, so to speak, and you're always conditioning, that I assume that those two things kind of go hand in hand, like what you experience on the mat versus and how you apply that off the mat in, philosophical, theoretical ways with the music.
Massively. I feel like getting into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and getting into streaming have been so good for me, in that they've been so humbling, and that they've been so, at times, just you feel so defeated, because musicians are so used to, once you're signed, once you're touring, and if your band kind of like stays at a progression, like slight ups and downs, but you have this career, you don't really know what it is to rebuild something. Like being in Trivium my whole life, that's all I've ever done. So I never really recognized, up until I was a little older, that I was practicing something. I was practicing rhythm guitar and lead and guitar, screaming and singing and frontmanship and all this stuff, songwriting. It's just something I did. So when I got into something new like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and just assuming I would be okay at it because I've only done one thing in my life, and just getting my ass kicked for the first 3 to 4 years and wanting to quit for the first 2 to 3 years, and then finally it's starting to make sense. I feel like jumping into something that humbling is important for all human beings. Everyone should do something that makes them feel bad about themselves, but that they recognize, like, I do not have what it takes yet. And if I stay at this, I stay consistent, I'll get good. And then eventually I'll get great. But always knowing there's someone better. Like that's another thing that maybe it was having kids that did this for me, but I used to always say, I want to be in the biggest, best metal band. I want to be the best. I used to say, like, maybe not like the best singer, but I would say I want the band to be the biggest metal band in the world. But since then, my priorities have really shifted. I still do practice in a way that I practice vocals to be as good as Bruce Dickinson, knowing I will never get that good. I practice guitar to be as good as Petrucci, knowing I'll never get that good. Now I could, if I put the time in that they put in, but instead it has shifted to, I want to be the best Matt Heafy for all the Matt Heafy things in the world. And I just recently started saying that within the last few months. And I think it's a little bit from having kids, because that's incredibly humbling, intense, a new thing. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like I said, I remember the first time I ever was able to grapple. And the teacher paired me up with, this was 8 years ago. So I was in my mid 20s. He paired me up with like a 16-year-old, like this small 16-year-old kid. And I was like, I got this. I'm going to beat this kid. He choked me out in 30 seconds. I was like, okay, all right. So this is something completely different than I ever realized. And that's when I started to think, man, all musicians need this. All musicians need to get their asses kicked. And there are a lot of them we can see every single day. Like, that guy needs to get his ass kicked daily, because it'll make them a more humble person. It'll make them a little bit more, remember that we're all just normal people doing something. Streaming is the other thing for me, because when I first started, we're talking 3 to 5 to 7 people watching for a couple minutes a day, and they start to teeter off. When I started doing music, it jumped up a little bit, then started dropping off. First Trivium show we streamed was really high. Then within a week, it starts dropping off. So always feeling that, am I doing it right? Jumping into something new, being scary, with this being this new frontier. And then with hard work, determination, putting in the time, maybe it'll pay off. And now it's become something that, it's very interesting. At the beginning of the pandemic, all the interviews and all the chats that I would do, people were like, so what is this Twitch thing? And then within like 3 to 6 months of that, everyone's like, I know exactly what this is. How is it going? And it's been cool to see that perspective shift.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally ahead of the curve with this whole thing that we didn't see coming.
Thanks, man.
That's great, man. Because what I love about what I hear you describing is that you have set yourself up in a way that allows you to continually reassess and see yourself straightforwardly as best you can, as one can, right? And so any type of humility or a humbling experience allows us that more straightforward, a mirror, a reflection towards like, oh, where do I sit in the grand scheme of the thing that I'm interested in offering or being a part of? And I love that. I'm not into martial arts. I'm a yoga guy, but like
me too.
It can be very much humbling also, right? The practice and it's done what I think that does for you in a way. It does for me.
That's awesome.
It helps shift and be able to hold attention longer.
It's awesome. Is there a style that you practice mainly for yoga?
I'm primarily a vinyasa guy. It's a kind of combination of Baron Baptiste style power yoga mixed with some ashtanga, mixed with some jivamukti. And I mean, I'm a teacher these days. I've been teaching
that's awesome.
for 5 years now.
That's awesome, man. I didn't know that. That's so cool.
I teach 3 days a week online, a couple days a week here in town. And I've, I'm somewhere between 500 and 600 classes taught now. And
That's
it's,
amazing.
I still have everywhere to go, the whole thing, but I can say I'm a good teacher now. Like
It's amazing. That's so cool. I love
I'm
that.
thankful
I
for it.
didn't know that. Yeah, I've been ashtanga practitioner since like 2010.
Oh shit, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I've only ever done ashtanga. The teachers here, they all like lived in Mysore for a bit and like really got heavy into ashtanga. So that was the thing that was like one of the first things I jumped into. I was like, wow, my flexibility is terrible.
Yeah.
I can't even sit cross-legged. Then seeing that progression is always so fun. That's so cool you do that.
Yeah, finding well, it's in the part of the humility factor in that, right, is to be asked to hold something that looks on the surface, oh, like that, I can hold a warrior pose, or I can do this balance pose, but can you stay and can you breathe naturally or deeply rather, and wait for it and be patient for the opening that's going to happen in the body. Usually that there's people are way too rushed. They're like, oh, I want to
Yes, they
learn how to
really
do a
are.
handstand or a down dog or something, and it's a parlor trick,
Yep.
to kind of like figure it out. And then, but the deeper your practice gets, you're like, oh, I'm going to slow this down,
Mhm.
and I'm going to see what happens on the other side of that.
I love one of my favorite things I ever heard from one of my teachers. They said a side effect of doing yoga is getting good at yoga. Like it's not about getting better. Your expression of the
Oh,
pose is your expression of the pose. I love those sayings, which was always really, really cool for me.
yeah. My one of my teachers would tell us, yoga's not a shape, it's a feeling. And
Mhm.
so because that whole I'm not good at yoga, so I don't do it. That's why you do it, is
Mhm.
because you're not good at it. And none of us are
Exactly.
technically great at it. Even the other good little one-liner is that it's not the person in the most advanced poses in the room that's necessarily the most advanced. It's the one with the most kind and sweet and pure thoughts, right? Like
Mhm.
if your practice is leading you towards that place, then the practice is working. Like physicality, yeah, that's great, it's opening, but is your mind and your heart opening, and are you a good person because of it? Like
Mhm.
that's part of it. But I know we're short on time. I want to ask you, guitar picks, like
Yep.
you started out so
Where's
young and so
mine?
early. I'm curious about what are the first thoughts or first memories you have of a guitar pick, and who, if anybody, inspired picking up that. What did you play through the years, and how did you get to play what you play now?
I remember it was whatever I could find around the house. My dad was a casual guitar player, so I always find those. I forgot that color. What's that like? It almost looks like a terrazzo floor color. It's like brown and yellow and white and black, like those old school Tortex or like those kind of
The
thin picks.
tortoiseshell.
Yes, the tortoiseshell ones. Like we'd always find those, and like, I remember the tips of those you broken off, and like I'd still
Mm-hmm.
play those a little bit, and I'd play the green colored one, and the green Dunlop, and the blue Dunlop, and the yellow Dunlop. But it was really when I got the Rock Discipline VHS when I was about 15, 16 years old. I saw Patricia talking about the Jazz 3. Super hard to find at the time. I find the classic Jazz 3s, and basically from that moment on, all I played was Jazz 3. There was a point where we started like crossing X's in them for better grip, because the grip was the one thing I didn't like about the Jazz 3. Then we started working the max grip stuff. That's when in 2006, I remember we did a photo shoot with Kirk Hammett, and he's like, "What's that pick?" And I showed him the Jazz 3. He's like, "Wow, this is pretty cool." And he was asking about tremolo picking. He thought it was interesting that we use tremolo picking as a rhythm guitar technique versus just lead, where he was used to seeing that. And then next thing we know, we see in a couple of years, Kirk Hammett's got the Jazz 3 signature, which I was super stoked to see. And then you and I were able to start getting work on the Matt Heafy Jazz 3 with the max grip with very specific thickness, which was super freaking cool. And now it was a matter of finding the right. I didn't want to take something that I felt was almost perfect and completely change it. It was just subtle modifications, just like the principle on my signature guitar. I take the guitar, subtle modifications on something that's already great. So I love the Jazz 3. Let's see what kind of thicknesses there are. So I tried every single thickness of Jazz 3. It's something right before the carbon fiber thickness. It's like carbon fiber and standard. It's like right in the middle of there. The definite grip, because the grip thing was something that was kind of rough. I wanted to go with gold just because for some reason I like gold. I like the color gold.
Awesome.
I don't know why. Yeah, I like that. And then I add the Kichi Kanji, just very simple, subtle little things that someone could walk in a music store, whether they love, hate, or don't know my band. could go, that's cool, I'm going to use that, because it's not like my face isn't on it. It's not overly specific. I feel like
Right.
that's really the key for signature gear. Same thing with my guitar. Or hopefully down the line, we want to make I want to make a custom signature amp. Something that find something that I love, make it where it works for anybody. Where you don't just have to be in the Trivium. You don't just have to be in the metal.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's one thing that I really like about the choices you made with that signature pick was that not knowing if I didn't know you, but I was one of those kids rolling through the thing. I was like, oh, that's got kanjis on it and it's gold and sparkles. Like I want to play that. I want to play that jazz 3.
Exactly.
And so yeah, you made really good choices on that, and
Thank you.
it was fun working with you on that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really appreciate that help, man. That was really fun being able to get started, because I've never really imagined like that I'd have a signature pick. Like I know like a guitar is something that, that kind of happens for guitar players, but a pick is a little bit more difficult. You have to make it your own machine or your own. I remember it was a pretty extensive process to make that happen.
Yeah, you went through like not just all the jazz 3s, but like all the flow picks and like anything that was like peripheral kind of related. I sent you everything.
Yep.
And I think there was like 4 or 5 at least like live sessions with you on Twitch going through and like letting other people like chime in. And
yep.
Yeah, that was super cool.
Thank you.
Hey man, I haven't had a chance to even tell you, but like I want to say congratulations on the last record.
Thank you very much.
What the Dead Men Say is an incredible record. And like, I mean, I like all the records, but it's fun. It's fun to like have you guys release a fresh record, especially in a year like 2020, it was kind of mixed all around for all these different reasons, and feel like I had like it was like, in a way, to me, it was like best of for me. I felt like all the elements for Trivium were there, plus like extra. There was extra something there, and I can hear a little bit of the I know you, it's not like you didn't have it before at times, but I can hear a little bit of the Dream Theater influence just in a little couple places where I'm like, oh, that's just like refreshing, because that's like a sound that if you know it, it's there, and you're like, you can hear just a little bit of thread from you being like a Petrucci fan, and from you guys, probably the band, probably enjoying that band as well. But congratulations, it sounds awesome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, for us, it was just ever since we got Alex in the band, because obviously we've had 4 studio drummers and a couple more if you consider live drummers as well. We were always looking for someone who had the exact same influence as us, and that's being into everything, like understanding where black metal comes from, understanding where melodic death metal comes from, understanding where thrash comes from, like all these things. We've always had drummers that can pull off a couple things, but maybe not everything. Alice can do everything and then some, and then play gospel and play like Latin and salsa beats and also play tech death. So with this one, it's been really fun for us, because we just want to keep going more. Like in a time where we see people, like a lot of our bands, that a lot of fellow bands want to maybe experiment with minimalism or kind of pull them back a little bit, explore other elements that aren't necessarily super heavy. For us, we just want to explore more everything, more heavy Trivium, more tech Trivium, more catchy Trivium, just keep going for it, and having there be no boundaries. And the way we've made the last maybe we made Sin and Dead Men was making the kind of music that we felt like didn't exist, something that we wanted to hear as fans of music. There were a couple of records we did put rules on ourselves: Vengeance, Crusade, and Silence. Those are records where we said, all right, we're not going to do this, and this. We're going to stay away from here. We're going to kind of stay right here. And Tim, we've set boundaries on ourselves. I feel like it was cool. We got to explore a sound. Like, I am proud of those records. But when you hear something like Ascendancy, In Wave, Shogun, Dead Men, like that's where you could tell there were no holds barred, and we just allowed anything and everything to happen within the scope of what we knew Trivium was. So we want to keep going with that.
That's awesome. And are you writing for another record now, or where are you at?
No plans right now. The big Trivium plan right now that we've gotten we did a one paid for show, because since we've streamed everything for free, we're like, how are we going to make this different? So we invested in staging. That's what A Lighter Distant Mirror show was. Got a state-of-the-art venue, brought our crew in, had Muse's staging director help us make everything, video walls, built set carts, all this stuff, just for one live stream show. For the paid one, we did 2 free stream ones at our old practice place, and now we're building our Trivium HQ, which is an old airplane hangar that is going to be a live stream studio / practice place / studio / rehearsal place and storage place that we outright fully own. As we said, we're sick of renting. Why are we renting from a place that we hate to be at? Let's be somewhere we're inspired. So I was able to purchase it off my cousin-in-law, who's HQ for his contracting business is right next door. So we bought it from him, and they're building the whole place out for us. And that's our current project.
Oh, that's great. Well, that I look forward to what gets created in that space.
It's gonna be awesome.
When you guys get, relaxed and you're in the right space and you can do the flow the way you want to do it, I know the good things will come from that. One last thing I'll ask is, like, what have you been listening to lately? You got any recommendations for us to check out?
Let's see the recent stuff. There's been a lot. I feel really terrible in that it took Alexi's passing for me to discover the new record. Now, Children of Bodom, their first 3 records are 3 of the most important records in Trivium's history. Wow. Like Something Wild, Hate Breeder, Fall the Reaper. Those things showed me so much of what songwriting can do, mixing these different genres, mixing classical and black metal and thrash and 80s, that I'd never heard Hexed until he passed. And then I listened to it, and what blows my mind is that Hexed is probably the greatest Children of Bodom record ever. It has everything they've ever done on one record and then some. So it's awful we lost him, but that's really been one of my main things. Let's do Hexed by Children of Bodom. Marrow's newest record, Reading the Bones. Keith Marrow is one of the sickest guitar players in the planet, because I mean, in a world where we've got some of the greatest lead players that we've ever had now, like lead playing has gotten insane. Marrow, his rhythm playing is just so fun to listen to. I have as much fun listening and watching him play rhythm and seeing what he writes as I do watching super shredders play like 8-finger tapping. So it's a really refreshing record in that it's vocalist. It's like this melodic tech death extreme stuff. Kind of reminds me of Atheist and Cynic and old Opeth and Martyr and all these things, but there's no vocals on it. I think that's really cool. His tones are amazing. His alluvial record that he did as well, with, I believe, Wes, who played with the Phases a little bit.
Oh,
Wes, yeah, alluvial. Yes, that record is incredible. Listen to that a ton. Been listening to a lot of Richard Marx because he and I have done a song together.
What?
Yeah, we did Right Here. We did Right Here Waiting. I made a metal version. I've been friends with him through social media because I saw in a documentary, someone in his documentary was wearing a Trivium shirt. So I tweeted at him, was like, hey, who's this? This is really cool. It's his son. Had a son at the show. Richard and I just kind of interact every once in a while on social media. And one day I did a post on his Instagram. Hey, let's do a collab. Text me back. He's like, let's do it. And so I said, here's my idea, Right Here Waiting. And I tracked it. He already did the vocals on it. It sounds super sick. Josh Wilbur's going to mix it. So there's that. It's going to be awesome.
We'll see that in the next couple months, maybe?
Hopefully the next couple months. Yep. And the next thing that'll be coming out on my solo release thing is the song I did with Mike Shinoda. I wrote this heavy song for this festival that didn't end up getting used. So I sent Mike the stems and he completely transformed the song into something entirely different. So it's super, super, super cool. It's like this bizarre kind of industrial sounding thing that he made. So those things are coming up. My black metal record, Ibaraki's finally coming up. I know we're talking about what have I been listening to. Also, nonstop listening to Ishan all the time.
Oh my, he's the best, dude.
Yeah, he's the man. So the production work he done on Ibaraki is insane. You'll hear Japanese instruments, you'll hear choirs, you'll hear symphonic stuff, you'll hear everything. Like he's
so exciting.
It's good. It's good.
And you're doing something with Jared Dines too, right?
Yeah, we did an EP together. It's Dines X Heafy that is out everywhere now.
Awesome.
We did the first ever music video that was basically a Twitch music video that featured all Twitch streamers playing the song, which that was the first thing. I think that was the first time that's ever been done, which was cool. I always like to try to hit first if I can. So that was nice to have. And that was a fantastic EP to make. Right now, Jared's working on I don't know if I think it's a full length with Howard Jones right now. Jared's an incredible writer, great guitar player, great guy. So that's going to be awesome. I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, dude, his combo with Howard Jones, that'll be really interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing Howard again.
Awesome. That'll be awesome.
Dude, I know you got to go. You got to take care of the kids and the family and everything. I appreciate you carving out a little
Thank you so much, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much. Truly appreciate it, man.
We'll be in touch.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much. And take good care of Paulo, man. When he was talking about a home, and I was like, check this guitar out that I have right here.
Oh yeah.
I was like, check this beast out right here.
Oh
and
yeah.
And when he played that, all right, that looks pretty awesome. So
yeah. No, he's great. We had a great conversation the other day, and I mean, I just know from years of working with you guys off and on that it's a great crew, and anything we can do to help you guys out. So.
Oh yeah, awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Soon,
so good to see you, man. Take care. Stay in touch.
All right.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Players Pick Podcast, Picks and Perspective with Chris Johnson.